feel-good radio station.
Feel good radio station.
Make me feel good.
107.5. Changing lives for good.
It is such an honor and a privilege to say a very good morning to Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town. Thank you for your time this morning, Professor.
Good morning, Jonathan. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, as the amazing person that you are an inspiring role model to millions of South African girls and women. Professor Phakeng's tireless contribution to education has received further acknowledgement. And this is where we are really excited because, Professor, you've been named as one of the top 10 finalists of the African Education Medal from T4 Education. Professor Phakeng now joins us via StreamYard. So, Professor Phakeng, firstly, congratulations on being named as one of the top 10 finalists. What an incredible achievement. What does this nomination mean to you and the University of Cape Town?
Jonathan, thank you so much for the congratulatory message. I mean, it's this Africa Education Medal is an honor. Just to be shortlisted, just to be in the top 10 finalists is an incredible honor. And frankly speaking, I'm surprised. I mean, and I have to thank T4 Education, HP, and Intel for seeing what I do as worthy of this recognition, because I do what I do because I love it. I'm passionate about education. I don't do it for money. I could make money other ways, but I chose to do education because education changed my life, and I feel that because it changed my life so much, it can do the same for other young people who grow up in poverty, who actually do not know what the future holds because of where they are at the moment. I used, at least family, my dad and my mom encouraged us to follow education, and I'm glad that I believed them. And I'm glad that I did that with all my heart because I'm here. So what I do to encourage other young people to come into education and to do education work is precisely because I believe that it's an equalizer, it's an enabler. Yeah. So I feel honored. I feel honored that I'm in the top 10 with the amazing people on the list.
And what I love about T4, they're an incredible organization, and their approach is saying, you know what, it cannot be done from the top down. It must be powered by grassroots change. And I think that's where your story is just so powerful, Professor, where you defied many limitations during your academic career. Please, could you share some insights into your journey in terms of motivation and overcoming many obstacles in your journey from a young girl in the township to now Vice Chancellor of South Africa's leading university?
Jonathan, I mean, my journey started under a tree, not even in a township, but in a village of Marapiani, which now falls under Mpumalanga. But I mean, that was back in 1972 when I started grade 1. And at that time, you went to school as soon as your right hand can touch your left ear.
Brilliant.
I never went to preschool or to creche or to anything. I'm one of those who stayed at home, and as soon as you couldn't wait. We couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for my hand to touch the ear, because then I could go to school, because school was a saving grace. Was because otherwise you stayed at home in the village, and from then on, in the 12 years of basic education, I went to 7 or 8 different schools. I never spent more than 2 years in one school in 12 years of basic education. And it was because of a variety of reasons. Some of them because of the politics of our country as they changed and homelands happened to us. Some of them simply because of poverty. My mother was a domestic worker. When my dad decided that they both decided that she must go back to school, then I go to the village, not just me and my siblings. Some of them because my parents thought things would be better. When my mom finished grade 10 and went to do PTC, primary teacher's course, which you could do with a grade 10, and she got a post in a primary school, then you move to go and study where my mom is. And then some of it because my parents thought things will be better. They'll move you to a new school because in a new area. And then, of course, for my matric, my dad took a loan. My dad worked for the SABC and Radio Motsweding FM now. It was called Radio Setswana. To take me to a boarding school in another village of Hebron. And they tell me they did that because they wanted me to be away from township boys, because at that time my parents were living in the township. We were living in the township of Garankua. So, and then from there went to a university, which was called at that time a Bundu University, a University of Bophuthatswana. People had no respect for universities in the then homelands. But to be frank with you, I can write a book about the kind of education I got at University of Bophuthatswana, which set me up for good, because from there I could go to Wits and do all my postgrad at Wits. But it was tough. I mean, going into Wits was also a huge jump, just culturally. I can remember doing an honors at Wits, and I was the only Black woman in an honors mathematics teaching class. And I would raise my hand. Nobody raised their hands. People just spoke. The culture was different. And I spent the whole 6 months not asking a question because I didn't know the way of interacting. And that's just not having the cultural and social capital of a middle-class environment. But I persevered, and as I speak now, I've got all my postgrad qualifications from Wits up to PhD. Sure. It wasn't easy. And then you're in an area of mathematics. I majored in mathematics and did research in mathematics education, and it's not easy. It's either male-dominated. If there are women, it's white women. So you're always a minority. So you go throughout. I've always been a minority, and in many ways, always been either an unwanted presence or a disruptive presence, and so you fight your whole way through. Your life is a battle, is a fight. Your professional life, and you figure out how to get through this. And I've worked in schools. I've taught at primary, in high school, at college, in a college of education. I've worked in the NGO world. People don't know that. People think I started as an academic, but I only went into academia after working many years, and some of them in the NGO world. And I have to say the most rewarding time was working in farm schools and with teachers in farm schools. When I could have been, I was a graduate and I could have been teaching anywhere. And I went into an NGO that was working in farm schools and learned so much about what it means to teach mathematics and what is it that you should focus on if you want children to succeed in mathematics. And I decided that that's what I'm going to do. I love doing this. And that was like, these children are me. These were children of farm workers. Some of the schools were former hostables that were transformed into classrooms. That the first week I was there, I was sick and I kept going back in and in. Some of the schools, the farmers were great. I mean, they ranged from mean farmers to the best farmers. I mean, Gary Player had a school also in his farm, Blair Ethel. That was a top farm school that had all the resources. I mean, in the mid-90s, it already had computer labs and teachers' quarters that were high class and so on. And then you had the meanest farmer who would open the gate only when he goes out. Anyone who goes into the farm goes in when they come in, when they go out. and then I stay in the school until he comes back, and that's the only time I go out and do different things. So I learned that, and I learned the value how not education can only change my life, but many other lives of young people in conditions such as those.
Sure, that is powerful. I can definitely hear your love for mathematics, even kind of in everything that you've said. And what's beautiful is that you have definitely broken through many glass ceilings, one of them becoming the first Black South African woman to achieve a PhD in mathematics education in 2002. But in terms of that, your passion and shaping and understanding mathematics, I know that there are many children that struggle and parents that also struggle with regard to mathematics. And the typical thing that sadly many parents and children do is they say, it's too difficult, and they give up. Please speak to us about that perseverance required and then why mathematics is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that we should focus on, if you want children to get into mathematics, you've got to make them love it. You've got to make them love it. So a teacher's big challenge is to make the children love mathematics. And I focused on that when I worked with students and when I worked with teachers as a teacher educator. And to make children love it, I mean, there are many different ways, you know. I believe that teaching is an art. You get into class, it's not just about what you know, it's how you put it across so that children want to be in that class. And I have to say, I can confidently say now, anyone who's been in my class, they might hate me because I'm extremely strict and don't take nonsense, but they will vouch to the fact that I was in. And I did my best to try to make them laugh. And young children, I used games. I had a good fortune of many years ago visiting I think back in 1995, visiting the Lawrence Hall of Science, the Family Math Center, and learned about family maths and equals and so on, and learned about the power of mathematics games, and started using some of them, designing some of them myself. For young children, that's important. But as a teacher, you don't just focus on the game, right? The game, and then you've got to know how to lift the maths and introduce the concepts so that the learners don't get stuck in the games. And then the other thing as a teacher is to recognize the nature of mathematics, that mathematics actually is both a medium and a message, is a language and a message, you know, and a subject. So when you teach mathematics, you teaching them a language. So what you teach them, for example, at grade 4, or even if it's grade 1, it becomes the language to use in grade 5, grade 6, even at university maths. So if you miss grade 7 maths, then grade 12 maths is going to be hard, you know. Yeah. So because it's a chain, but then the challenge of the teacher, you see, teaching mathematics is way harder than doing mathematics, because when you do mathematics, you do it for yourself. You don't have to figure out why anybody doesn't get it. But when you teach mathematics, you almost like, you've got to know how to do it for yourself, but then you also have to be able to diagnose. So you sort of, that doctor, the mathematics doctor, that when a learner presents a solution and the solution is not correct, your role is not just to say it is wrong. Your role is to look at it and then diagnose where, not only where the mistake is, but why the mistake is there. You look at it and you say, okay, clearly this child doesn't understand fractions. We are doing calculus, but the problem is they missed it there. Or we're doing the remainder theorem, but their problem is actually they do not know how to work with mathematical expressions. So it's a diagnosis. Not everyone who knows mathematics can diagnose that and then say, what do I need to do to bring them on board? So what do I need to do to bring that chain, that piece of the chain that's missing? And that's something that if you can do that, you can actually, the teacher can save many children. in terms of who have missed a few chains or one or two chains, because some of them just missed one chain, everything, and then you can get them to the next level. But then finally, let me say that the third thing that I think we should do is not only done by the teachers. You know, the two things that I said, it's about the teachers. I haven't said anything about the learners. Obviously, the learners have to work hard, and we can talk about that if you like. But something that we can do as a society, Jonathan, is that, you know, if you have nothing good to say about mathematics, don't say anything at all. Brilliant. It is amazing. It is amazing how many in our society feel very comfortable to say that they were bad at mathematics. Big people with big positions say, I feel very comfortable that they will say they were bad at mathematics, and nobody will cancel them, nobody whatever, because it's accepted. And then we expect young people to love mathematics. I mean, if the person they respect, the person they look up to, they see in the news, whatever says, I was bad at mathematics, and there they are, they're a CEO, or they're a business person, or they're an NGO leader, or whatever, why should they start it? So some learners fail mathematics before they even start doing it, because they've already given up. They are doing it because they have to. They're not doing it because they want to and they think it's an opportunity. No. They're just doing it because they have to. So I think those three things are important. And mathematics is key. Without mathematics, as a society, as a country, let me just say, our democracy will not be sustainable. We will not be able to produce the kind of critical citizens that we need. And we will not be able to produce the kinds of human capital that we need in this country. I don't even want to talk about the need for engineers, whatever. Just even in terms of critical citizenry, we will not be able to do that, because many of the decisions, everyday decisions that people make have mathematics in them, and many people miss it. Just in terms of how you take care of your money, how do you make money decisions and so on. Yeah. How do you, so even if you want to be a fashion designer or whatever, mathematics is there. It's embedded in there. And so you've got to, there's more things that we can do with mathematics. And it's important that we encourage and do all that we can to make sure that more of our learners get into mathematics and do well at it.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I think that is a perfect place for us to land today's interview with Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng, the Vice Chancellor of UCT. Thank you so much for what you've said just there, because it is so important that as parents, as business leaders, as community members, that we change the narrative around mathematics. So thank you so much for what you stand for, Professor, and we wish you all the best with regard to your nomination. Thank you so much for chatting to us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Have a good day then.
Thank you. You too.